This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fawbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And good morning, Kentucky. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice, and this is the Tom and Bob Show coming to you live. And it's another great morning here in the Commonwealth, despite the rain. We're endeavoring to bring some clarity, some truth, and some good old-fashioned common sense to the headlines that affect your life. I'm your host today, Bob Scott, and we've got a packed five-segment lineup for you today. My co-host, Tom Fawbush, is in the studio, and we are absolutely 100% ready to roll. If you have a comment or a thought, that you can text us at 502-571-0970. Again, that text line number is 502-571-0970. Let's get right into the stories shaping America and shaping our Commonwealth, because this is what matters to you. And if it matters to you, it absolutely matters to us. We begin this morning with a somber update from the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB has released its preliminary findings on UPS Flight 2976, the tragic crash that took the lives of 3 crew members and 11 people on the ground and left 23 others injured. The report does shed new light on what went wrong, what warnings were missed, and what systemic failures might have contributed to the devastating event. Please play clip 0.
Also breaking at this hour, the National Transportation Safety Board releasing a preliminary report into that deadly UPS plane crash in Louisville that you see video of there. It was truly horrifying, and it is revealing some truly stunning failures. Welcome back to a new hour of America Reports. I'm John Roberts in Washington. That crash is just unbelievable.
Just hard to watch. John, I'm Sandra Smith in New York. So it all happened earlier this month. You'll remember that UPS jet crashing after takeoff from Louisville's airport, killing all 3 pilots and 11 people on the ground.
And now, newly released surveillance images show the moment that the left engine ripped away from the wing.
Our correspondent Garrett Tenney has been combing over the new info. Garrett, you were on the ground in Louisville just hours after this crash. So what now are we learning?
Well, Sandra, that engine that flew off the UPS cargo plane is giving investigators a lot of important answers as to what may have caused this crash. You can see in these surveillance images that you mentioned, the MD-11 aircraft's left engine catching fire and then flying off and over the plane during takeoff. Well, investigators found that a piece of the aircraft, the lug, which helps the engine stay attached to the wing, had fatigue cracks in multiple areas, as well as areas of overstress failure, meaning this metal had likely been slowly cracking before it eventually snapped during takeoff on this flight.
And Tom, based on this preliminary report, what stands out as the most significant contributing factor to this crash to you?
Well, it looks like a lug that broke off the plane. Mr. Producer, I've got the still shots of these up if you want to put up on the screen, but you can see the engine as it's actually what's interesting, the first frame, this plane is actually off the ground. It's actually taking off the ground here. You can see it right here. There's about a foot or about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. Then you can see this engine sort of break away and kind of flip backwards. And so basically the thrust of the engine itself is forcing it and breaking it off the wing, flipping it over. And then, of course, when it breaks off, the fuel lines, disconnect, and of course, the flames engulf it. And here's the key thing, Bob. Yeah, here's the key thing: is this particular design, this airplane with this second engine in the back in the elevator, it's prone to ingest any sort of debris, and that's apparently what happened when this thing flipped over on top of the wing. It basically exploded in midair, right in front and roughly left of the center engine in the back, and so it was just sucking in all this debris that engine was. And so, bad design. I've never liked this plane. I never liked this triplane engine in the back thing. It's just prone to. So that's what killed it. It's the 2 engines. It could have got off the ground and landed with the 2 engines. It's that second engine that died because of the debris that it ingested is what doomed these guys. And so, but just really tragic.
Yeah, that's right, Tom, and 100%. Stick with us, folks. Right back with more Kentucky's Voice coming right up.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We are going to shift gears a little bit to New York City, where newly elected Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani has formally requested. Now, he's the one that did the requesting of this meeting, and it looks like that meeting is on today with current President Donald Trump. This is very much a political matchup nobody expected, and certainly not this early in his term, as far as Trump's term, let alone Mamdani's. The big questions that must be asked is, what does Mamdani want, and what's motivating his outreach, and what does Trump stand to gain or lose from it? Before we do that, let's play a clip. Let's go to clip number 1.
I will be heading to Washington, D.C. tomorrow to meet with President Trump in the White House. It is customary for an incoming mayor of this city to meet with the White House, given the mutual reliance. It's more critical than ever, given the national crisis of affordability, one that New Yorkers know very well across these 5 boroughs, and the specific challenge many cities are facing with balancing public safety against steps taken by this administration. I know that for tens of thousands of New Yorkers, this meeting is between 2 very different candidates who they voted for the same reason. They wanted a leader who would take on the cost of living crisis that makes it impossible for working people to afford living in this city. My team reached out to the White House to set up this meeting because I will work with anyone to make life more affordable for the more than 8.5 million people who call this city home. I have many disagreements with the president, and I believe that we should be relentless and pursue all avenues and all meetings that could make our city affordable for every single New Yorker. I intend to make it clear to President Trump that I will work with him on any agenda that benefits New Yorkers. If an agenda hurts New Yorkers, I will also be the first to say so.
Very interesting that the meeting is happening. If you keyed in on his last statement, he said that he'll work on any agenda that helps to benefit New York and New Yorkers. So, Tom, what do you think Mamdani's primary motive is in seeking out this meeting with President Trump?
Well, he's probably going to show up and hand him a certificate of diminutive where he needs to start paying the jizya tax because the Muslims have taken over New York and America now needs to pay taxes to the caliphate. And I'm slightly jesting there, but yeah, it is. We're in a strange moment in American history, and I hope this is a wake-up call. A communist, and also, let me just say it, is also a Muslim. Muslim is now a mayor of the largest city in the country, the heart of our financial, industry in this country is he's now the mayor. So, why that happens because of overdosing on immigration. Everybody knows that. This should be a wake-up call. There's a problem. And also the left needs to get a real clear view on what's happening here. They think that, well, we can just have all these blue cities. Well, blue cities invite in immigration, and Islamic immigration is starting to grow. And so eventually these blue cities are going to turn into green cities. And New York is now a green city, green flag of Islam. And now, and what happens is Islamic groups and populations and voter bloc. They eventually they ride on the coattails of left-wing ideas, and then they when they get power, they kick out the leftist, and just like they did in Iran.
Or worse.
The Shah, what did he do? The Shah came in and he killed the communists. Helped get the Shah in, and as soon as the Shah got in Iran, he killed all the communists. And so that's what's going to happen to every blue city, and because of your policy of immigration, your suicidal empathy of all these immigrants deserve a chance to come into the country illegally, whatever. Well, guess what? You're going to get outvoted, outbred, and you're going to have a green city, and you're not going to like the results because guess what? They don't like LGBT.
Well, and you're right. They're definitely not pro-gay in any way, shape, fashion, or form,
or pro-American.
Or pro-American, and it's interesting because you were talking about the Shah. Well, what happened to him? That. He did the same thing. He had the same thing done to him in his regime.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the Shah. I meant the Ayatollah. When the Ayatollah came in, He killed,
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
kicked out the Shah, but the Ayatollah
Yes.
killed the communists. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I guess I got to ask you a question. Does this signal a shift in how far left leadership, and we saw what's happened in Seattle, and there's another race that's still pending, I guess, a final call. I think it's in Minnesota right now. Does this signal that the far left cities, do they have a plan to engage with national conservative figures, or and I think I know the answer to this, or was this just a smokescreen?
No, it's just a smokescreen. He's just trying to do what he can. And also, I think it's a bit ironic is Mamdani, I think now that he's in office, realize he doesn't have the power to do all these socialist policies he wants to put in. Even the governor of New York, the Democrat governor of New York, has shut him down and said, "No, you're not going to do this. We're not going to run out all the millionaires and billionaires that are in New York. They pay all the taxes." And so you're not going to have free buses because all the millionaires that you're running out of Wall Street, it's going to go to Miami. They're paying the taxes, so you're not doing this stuff, Mamdani. So so I think he's kind of being boxed in even by his own party, as long as they still have that. But the problem is he represents this radical left socialist wing of the party that's ascendant, and so he's representative of that civil war that's going on in the Democratic Party. And so we'll see. I don't know. I mean, not much the right can do in that situation other than just hold up a mirror and say, "Listen, you guys you're crazy, and we're just going to let you implode your city." Well, I don't know. I think Trump wants to box him in as well because he cares about New York, and so he's a New Yorker. So we'll see.
Yeah, he's a New Yorker at heart, even though he's moved physically down to Florida.
Yeah.
He's absolutely a New Yorker at heart. Tom, how might this meeting impact New York's city's political landscape, or I guess certainly from Trump's perspective, his national standing?
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to help Trump's national standing unless he comes out and confronts him effectively and does it in a way that chastises him and shows that, hey, I'm still the boss, I'm the president. Because what can happen is you can end up platforming somebody like Mamdani.
Yes.
And elevating him by a meeting with the president. So I kind of I question the wisdom of a lot of this. Because if Mamdani is who he says he is, he should be just shunned out of political life. He shouldn't be meeting with anybody, honestly. So
yeah, and it's interesting to see Trump's initial response to this was, to be very frank with you, gracious. When he found out that I think he was being questioned at the airport on Sunday, and he was very gracious. A lot more gracious than Trump usually is, and that really surprised me. Is there a strategic risk for Trump in legitimatizing a socialist mayor's outreach, or is this a smart political play, with regard to what the president, Trump's often called the guy that plays 5D chess. Is this part of that 5D chess?
It could be. The one thing about Trump's style is even when he has an adversary, he tries to bring them close. What's the old adage? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And
yeah.
So I think building a relationship with opponents or adversaries, political adversaries, has some wisdom because you can then influence them maybe to come over to your side. And so I don't know. The man has wrote The Art of the Deal for a reason, and he's definitely a president. So you don't get there by being a fool with people.
Yeah.
I give him. Listen, I always give President Trump the benefit of the doubt until it's so clear that you need to criticize him. And there are some things you criticize him about right now from the right.
Right.
He needs to focus on domestic issues. He needs to, go ahead and release the Epstein files like he's doing. So there's some things that it's worth criticizing on. But I don't know, the way he handles diplomacy domestically and internationally, I'm still pretty satisfied with. How about you?
Yeah, I am too. And, and I can tell by your body language, this meeting bothers you a little bit. And
not a solid communist.
Yeah, well, I get that.
Communist and somebody who's anti-Israel, anti-Jewish Muslim. Let's just say it.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly right. That's when they tell you who they are and have been doing it a long time. Guess what? That's who they usually are.
That's who they
you
are.
know.
Bob, did you see this big protest with Palestinians or pro-Palestinian protesters protesting in front of one of the largest synagogues in New York last night, out there waving flags of Palestine, saying "Death to the IDF, death to Israel," basically just intimidating Jewish New Yorkers. Listen, everybody
Many
knows.
of them voted for Mamdani.
Right. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, it's just we're in the Mamdani era in New York. We'll see what happens. But
Tom, when we come back, we need to move on to our next segment. We'll turn to a story with very massive. We've been talking about a lot on this station, folks. Massive national security implications. China is now believed to be actively probing and targeting critical infrastructures here in the United States. It's not hypothetical, it's preparation. Discussion is next. Stay tuned to listen to the next chapter of Kentucky's Voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We are now going to take a very hard look at China's escalating cyber activity inside the United States. We've been talking about this a lot, folks. Some of you might be saying, Bob, why are you all beating what appears to be a dead horse? Well, let me tell you, it's not a dead horse. This is a situation that every American needs to be tuned into, mainly because intelligence analysts and military officials are warning that Chinese state-sponsored operations have been targeting key U.S. infrastructure, such as power grids, such as water systems, such as communication networks, not for random disruption, but they feel, and these are people a lot smarter than me, it's in preparation for a potential conflict scenario with the United States. We've even had folks like Scott Mann, who's been on my program. He's been crying this loud, and he's an expert. Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, who's very in tune with intelligence efforts in our country and the big states that are trying to attack us. But I'd like to play and bring you up to speed with some of the latest developments that were featured on, of all places, 60 Minutes, and with former NSA Director General Tim Hawk. Please play clip 2.
I think initially we were surprised that China would target every American with these capabilities. That goes against every norm of international law. That certainly goes against how the United States military would approach targeting in a crisis or a conflict. That the fact that they would go after basic services as part of their effort that they have identified as unrestricted warfare is unconscionable.
And what did they target?
They targeted water, they targeted electrical power infrastructure, transportation are examples of the types of things that were targeted. And in many cases, they're vulnerable.
Multiple intrusions at utilities were discovered in 2023, and China had been on some of their computer networks at least 5 years. You're saying that the Chinese today are in American power plants, water treatment plants, other parts of the electrical grid, maybe even hospitals, telecommunications, all of that?
So there is a daily contest that is going on to be able to deny China those accesses, but they are certainly attempting every single day to be able to target telecommunications, to be able to target critical infrastructure, both in the United States and in other countries, and they are doing that to try to ensure that they have an advantage in a crisis or a conflict.
Is China preparing for war?
There was no other reason to target those systems. There was no advantage to be gained economically. There was no foreign intelligence collection value. The only value would be for use in a crisis or a conflict.
And the answer to the last question is yes. Yes. China is absolutely 100% preparing for conflict. They've had for a long time their eyes set on Taiwan. They feel Taiwan is a breakaway republic and should be a part of China. So they are absolutely 100% moving in that direction. You know, Tom, how real is the threat, in your opinion, that China is actually preparing the battlefield digitally right now before any potential physical conflict?
Yeah. Well, one thing for sure, when you look at warfare, every major war, there's a change in the approach to technology and change in the way we fight. And typically, the major powers who are on the defensive are always caught flat-footed because they're ready to fight the last war and not the new war. A good example is let's look at Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine, they started off the war fighting with tanks and infantry and airplanes. Now it's robots. Now it's drones and robots. And if you're not an expert in drone warfare, you're going to get your clock cleaned over there in Ukraine. Well, this next war with China is going to be asymmetric. It's not going to be a ship on ship, tank on tank, plane on plane fight. It's going to be cyber. It's going to be could be even biological. It could be if it's going to be total war, which is what probably they'll go to. They'll probably do everything short of nuclear, which is infrastructure attacks, and it's gonna be put it this way: the U.S. will be the front line. It's not going to be way over in the Pacific. It'll be here. Our infrastructure can be shut down very easily just through the internet. And here's another thing: they had cloud. What is it? Cloud Bank or Clouds, whatever that cloud group that ran all these websites. They got shut down on Monday. Silicon Valley needs to wake up to this, and they need to get on board with national defense. Now, some of them are, but for years they resisted, getting involved in national defense issues because that's the military. It's icky. That's the, well, listen, guys, you're the target. You're the target. They're coming after you. And that whole cloud, what's the group, Cloud Stream or whatever that is, that group that got shut down Monday, knocked down half the internet on Monday.
And everybody felt that. We felt it.
That's right. Yeah. So I think Silicon Valley, get engaged here, wake up, help us defend your country. China is no friend. And China, here's the thing: China's going to go one or two directions. It's going to either moderate, and they're just going to focus in on their declining birth rate and their declining economy, and just focus inward and try to deal with that, or they're going to really, deal with a major economic crisis, a declining demographic, and they're going to lash out and try to, in order to prevent from people rising up and overthrowing the government, which is what China does historically. The peasants revolt and they kick out the emperor. Well, what the CCP will do is they'll launch a war to distract the Chinese, and they'll say, "Hey, rally around the flag, guys! Let's go attack Taiwan." And it'll be a last. And so they might be pushed into a war because they feel like they need to, or else they'll be out of power.
That sounds like a familiar technique that's happened even perhaps in our country. With regard to what people call a false flag.
Yeah, wag the dog. Yeah, right.
Happening. In fact, folks, if you want to join in this discussion, you can do so by texting us at 502-571-0970. I bring that up because we have received one text already. It really does pertain to this conversation. And I think, Tom, this is a Tom Fawbush question.
Okay, the difference. Okay, can you please touch on what's the difference between a socialist and a communist?
Yeah.
Well, a communist is a socialist, right? So Marx, when he wrote the Communist Manifesto, basically said socialism is the overriding, ethos. That's the goal. Communism is a certain way of rolling out socialism, where it's authoritarian, and so it's sort of the end state of the socialist goal. And so you can have like a soft socialism, like what you have, honestly, in the United States in a lot of ways. Like a lot of our systems are quasi-socialist.
Well, Bernie Sanders and
right.
What we see happening right now in New York City. Yeah,
that's right. But at the end of the day, it's all very authoritarian, state-centered, control
Yep.
of resources, redistribution, and so I guess you can say there's a bit of a continuum between socialism and communism, but it's really but at the same time, look at every communist country. Socialism is in their name, right? The USSR, Union of Socialist Soviet Republics, I think the North Koreans have socialism in their name. Socialist is what communists call themselves. They call themselves socialist, because it is socialism that Marx was pushing, and so communism is just a really a semantic trick there. It's the same thing, and it's just what level of government control do you institute? But it eventually all moves down the same path. It's more and more government control, more and more authoritarian control over the means of production, resources, your life, etc. And so there we go. That's
yeah. And it's just about 30 seconds. What steps do you feel that the United States should take immediately to harden these critical systems?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's start reshoring all of the infrastructure that we can. For example, all these big electric, what do you call those terminals, or the big electrical power stations you see all over the city.
Yeah, the power grids.
Power grids, yeah, all those big components, those big capacitors, and all that stuff. All that stuff's made in China. And so right. they could attack us, and we can't even make we can't even make these things and repair them once they go out. And so reshore everything and get Silicon Valley to help harden up our infrastructure and get real. Just wake up to this. We got they're an adversary. They're not a friend. And
well, Tom, coming up next, we are going to shift our discussion as my son Zach Scott joins us as our special guest. We're going to be discussing intelligence warnings about radical Islamic terrorists targeting places even like Cedar Point in Ohio. Stay tuned. You don't miss this next segment.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And we're back. This is a very important segment to me personally. I'm joined this morning by my son, Zach Scott, who has been closely following the Islamic terrorist threat against Cedar Point Amusement Park in Ohio that has gotten virtually no national attention whatsoever. Big surprise. It has been covered locally there, but it's shocking. Virtually no one is covering it nationally. Zach is a college student who, during high school, he worked in security at our local Kentucky Kingdom. And as mentioned, one of the most concerning terrorist targets was Cedar Point in Ohio, a place visited often by Zach and his friends, as well as many thousands of families every day, and other similar type of soft targets nationwide. And why do we call them soft? Because lots of people gather, and if a terrorist or a bunch of terrorists go in there and do damage, or start attacking, they can do immense damage with lots of casualties. Before we bring Zach into the conversation, let's ground ourselves in the details. Please play clip 3.
Well, we have developing news on a terror plot that targeted Cedar Point.
Yeah, one man accused of scouting the amusement park during the busy Halloween weekends. 19 News reporter Colton Molesky joins us live in the newsroom with the latest developments on this. Colton, this is beyond disturbing.
Nicole, Brian, it is really scary, especially the details starting to come out in court documents. One of the suspects who was arrested for a large terror plot that included Cedar Point went online and searched, is it crowded on Halloween weekend?
Halloween Weekends is a huge end of the season event at Cedar Point. Thousands fill the park looking for fun, a little fright, and a last taste of summer. But the FBI says this year it was a possible target for terrorists. 3 men from Dearborn, Michigan, Muhammad Ali, Majed Mohamud, and Ayub Nasir, are now facing charges for conspiracy to support ISIS and having guns that would be used to carry out a terrorist attack. The FBI served search warrants on October 31st. They believe attacks would have included several targets on Halloween. Cedar Point was likely one of them. Take a look at what agents seized when they made the arrests. 3 AR-15 style rifles, 2 shotguns, 4 handguns, and nearly 1,700 rounds of ammunition, along with tactical vests and gear. The FBI says the group got the weapons in August and September, and court documents show pictures of the group going to gun ranges in September and October. The documents don't list Cedar Point by name.
Okay, let's think about. Did you catch the names of the terror suspects?
Yeah, and where they were from?
Where they're from? That's
Dearborn, Michigan. Hello.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes. Hello.
Come
Hello.
on. The United States Caliphate of Dearborn. And so,
Yes.
it's Bob. We've got a real problem here. We've got a problem of importing our own demise, and it's and we talked about this yesterday. Islam and Islamic immigration it's a delicate issue to discuss because America has always been pro-immigration when it wants to have immigration, but there are certain cultures, not races, not but certain cultures that have a difficult time assimilating into Western countries. Right. And that is really anybody with an Islamic background. And of course, there's a continuum there of somebody that's a nominal Muslim, somebody that doesn't really pay attention to the religion, but then all the way to the continuum of somebody that really takes it seriously and who's a radical and wants to really follow Muhammad's dictates of to conquer the country. And so, but regardless, the nominal moderate Muslim doesn't have the energy or the moral justification of kind of trying to tamp down the radicals, because the radicals can always just point to the Quran, to the Hadith, and say, look, Muhammad said do this. Muhammad said to go in and undermine the country you live in and convert it to Islam and make it a Sharia-based country. And so, so you moderate Muslims, you're the apostates. You better get in line. And like, well, I guess so. We're Muslims. I guess that's what the Quran does say that we need to. So there's a problem with just people that abide by Islamic, doctrine, and because it's not just a religion, it's a political system, and the religion demands you to change your political system to line up with the Quran and line up with the Islamic ideology, and it's Islamism, and it's why
it's always been a social system, religion of conformity. Right. It's either my way or the highway with regard to that. Now, again, I want to really stress, I've had several Muslim friends that are very much moderate, in their viewpoint, but those many of those that are leading them and leading the effort do just the opposite. They want to bring their way of living. And in fact, I'm going to ask Zach, and again, this is my son, Zach Scott, who had worked at Kentucky Kingdom one time. He actually worked in security there.
Yeah, he headed the tactical response team at Kentucky Kingdom.
Right,
he was all geared up.
He does offer some very unique insight. Zach, from what you've been studying, how credible and imminent are the threats being discussed regarding Cedar Point and really any amusement park in our country?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, a lot of amusement parks do have police officers posted around the park, typically at least a handgun. Some do have rifles, which that is reassuring. When you go into a theme park, often when you get through the security checkpoint, one of the first security checkpoints, they check if you have any guns or anything. And usually, unless you're like an off-duty police officer, you can't bring any sort of weapon that could be used as, lethal force. But these are definitely credible threats. I will say, when I worked at Kentucky Kingdom, there was some scenarios and I won't say incidents, but some situations that we had that it wasn't like anything extreme like terrorism. But I won't mention the specifics because that's my former employer. But definitely just some questions were raised, and like how would we, as the public safety officers, now it's security, how would we handle and deter such threats? I know this past summer, I have my best friend out of high school who's also a big roller coaster enthusiast. He's a ride supervisor there. And they had, I think it was in the exposition center, there was like a tile that fell, and that kind of created a herd mentality because people thought it was a gunshot. And so Kentucky Kingdom actually had to be evacuated. And just everyone it was kind of like, what happens, unfortunately, what can happen with the herd mentality is there could be like crowd crush, or people can, start getting trampled on. And fortunately, that didn't happen at all. But that's something that you'd have to think about, especially if you had an attack like this. So
Yeah, and that's the thing, Zach. An attack like that they were attempting to do, they would come in, I don't want to say with overwhelming force, but I would often come to the park when you work there, and you guys were just kids, and you did have the Louisville police officers and other police officers there, but it wasn't a ton, they're protecting. And I was always happy to see, like you, a long rifle there. I'm never ever object to seeing a police officer standing outside with a long rifle, because that's what you have to be able to
absolutely
to meet that kind of an attack.
Yeah, well, what's tragic about this is it is tragic that we have to militarize our public spaces because of what we've done to our country. We did this to ourselves. We opened up the floodgates to just a tremendous amount of foreign immigration. And at a level where they cannot assimilate.
Yep.
And so what that does is that creates a low trust society. And when you have a low trust society, you can no longer be in public spaces because you can't trust your neighbor. You don't know what they're about. You don't know what they don't feel like they're, you get groups like these young men who are probably American citizens because they bought guns, right? So they probably have Second Amendment rights, but they don't feel like they belong. They feel like we're the other. And so there's this foreign agent immigration did this to us, folks. We've overdosed on it, and we need to shut it down. And there's calls right now, and J.D. Vance even said this. We probably should just stop all immigration for 40 years, all of it, legal, illegal. Let us get back to a high trust society where we can go to the Kentucky Kingdom without having, guards with ARs sitting there protecting our kids. That's ridiculous, folks. We did this to ourselves, and it's time to just deal with the problem as it is. It's immigration that brings in foreign cultures that cannot assimilate or don't want to assimilate. And so now we can't have nice things like theme parks.
Yeah.
That is truly the tragic thing is, we have this multiculturalism, and, that's the great thing about America is we're a free country. We can have different cultures, but if they're not assimilating, that's an issue. And I will say another thing is, when I was first started working there, they had just added metal detectors, and then now they have these high-tech, fancy AI detectors. But it's just a shame that you even have to have these procedures and these steps in place because you don't know if someone's going to grab a gun and start trying to shoot people in the name of jihad, or if they're mentally ill.
Yeah, we have a text that came in and goes basically saying, there are no moderate Muslims, and so but. I know some folks that are some nice people that come from a Muslim country and maybe they're not serious about their religion. But the problem is you can't separate those folks from people that turn serious about their faith. And people that are serious about their Muslim faith, it draws them to be more radical. And even those that are moderate now, a lot of them return to their faith and get serious about it. And if you follow it to what it says, it is an ideology that promotes violence and basically a insurrectionist, subversive force in your society, and it just does. I'm sorry, you can't get around that. It's hard, it's because a lot of these are nice people, but you can't separate the nice people from the radicals. And there's a very large percentage of that population that is radical and that are hostile. And look at Dearborn. Just go all the stories about Dearborn. So anyway, guys, we got 30 seconds left. Sorry.
Yeah, and in fact, and Zach, thank you for giving that your great insight. When we return, we're continuing this critical discussion about radical Islam and the threat of Sharia law right here in America. We hope to have State Representative Bill Wesley on the program. He's going to join us about legislation he's preparing for the 2020 General Session that would ban Sharia law in Kentucky. That's what's coming up next on Kentucky's Voice.
Live free or die.
Don't want to second up.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to our final segment of Kentucky's Voice. In this final segment, we continue examining the spread of radical Islam, its ideology, and the growing debate over Sharia law inside the United States here in Kentucky. Momentum, thank God, is building behind legislation aimed at ensuring Sharia law can never take root in this state. State Representative Bill Wesley is leading the charge on that and is expected to join us in just a second. In fact, he is in our green room / waiting room, getting ready to be on the program. Bill wants to introduce during the 2026 general session coming up in January some legislation that will hopefully address this issue. But before we get to that, I'd like everybody to listen to a clip from the late, great Charlie Kirk. Please play clip.
The spiritual battle is coming to the West, and the enemies are wokeism or Marxism combining with Islamism to go after what we call the American way of life. And the American way of life is very simple. I want to be able to get married, buy a home, have kids, allow them to ride their bike till the sun goes down, send them to a good school, have a low-crime neighborhood, not to have my kid be taught the lesbian, gay, transgender garbage in their school, while also not having them have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's important. We want the American way of life, which is, by the way, Christendom. Christians, our sacrifice, our toil, our vision, the outgrowth of the scriptures gave us Western civilization. And this is where I think is a great rallying cry. Doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, doesn't matter if you're Asian, doesn't matter if you're black or white. Everybody, if you are Christian and Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, these two threats are combining forces to come after us. And it's time that the church stands and rises up against it.
Yep.
Amen.
And of course, that was Charlie Kirk speaking beyond the grave, and will continue to speak, I think, even louder and more emphatically as time goes on. We are honored to have Kentucky State Representative Bill Wesley of District 91 joining the program today. Bill is also a candidate for Senate District 30 over in Eastern Kentucky. That's the area, the neck of the woods that he represents. And I'll say this, I know him well. He's a friend, and he's a true patriot. He's also has served as a Christian pastor, very, very involved, well-known, well-loved by a lot of folks. In fact, today we want to talk about the latest piece of legislation that I referred to before we went to that clip, and the bill intends to file this January in the next general session. I believe it's referred to as BR 1084, that will address the Sharia law issue in our state. Bill Wesley, it's an honor, sir, to have you on the program. Again, you're one of the few voices that isn't afraid to get out and tell it like it is, and really fighting for every Kentuckian. Again, welcome to Kentucky's Voice. And tell us a little bit about where you're at on this bill. I know it takes a lot. It's a big process, as I often call it, the sausage-making process of legislation. But, you know, where are you at on that? What was your thoughts going into bringing this forward?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me this morning, Brother Bob. And I consider you and your family dear friends of mine. I appreciate that very much. As a legislator, you see and hear a lot of things going on that goes on behind the scene. And so with that being said, we come into conflict with social issues that's coming into our state, trying to come in. And so what we're trying to do is some of us, we're trying to fight behind the scenes, trying to get things in order, make a stand when we can. So right now, we are in a war, as Brother Charlie Kirk was saying. A lot of people is blind to it. They're deaf to it. We're taught that we don't want to offend nobody. Well, just to kind of throw this in there, Jesus said in John 6:61, "Doeth this offend you?" And, you know, by our standing, we're going to offend people. Galatians 4, I believe, verse 16, do I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? We're taught right now, we don't want to offend nobody. But the gospel is going to offend some, maybe a lot of people, for the stances that we're going to stand on things that we know is going to be harmful. So the Sharia law, if you don't mind me talking about what I had to deal with last year, the last day of session, matter of fact, putting someone out of the girls' bathroom. You know, we're fighting for women's rights, and a lot of people don't even realize that. We're fighting for our children's rights. So this Sharia law that is in the United States, there are thousands of Muslims. I believe 53% of Dearborn, Michigan is under just a dictatorship of Islam. And so there is people right now that are rising up fighting against it. There are thousands on top of thousands of mosques going up all over the United States. And, you know, we could turn a deaf ear to it and a deaf eye to it or a blind eye to it. But it still does not change the fact, Brother Bob, that these people are here to destroy us. Bottom line, their Quran mentions that it is their right to lie to us, basically to play us as a fool, and to kill us in the end if we don't convert over to Islam. So with the women, they have no rights in the Sharia law. And so we're just trying to be careful how we approach this, because we know that right now the far left is fighting us on abortion issues, which deals with life. We have the far left that is dealing with us on transgender issues, which is, to me, it's mental health. You know, you don't hear about mental health no more. We just, kind of adopt that in. But there's a problem when we got a grown man fighting us to get into a woman's bathroom or their privacy. And so I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight them. I'm going to fight against them. I believe we got some good people up there at the House. This next election is going to turn over a lot of things that needs to be turned over. And we need to fight this before it gets fully going in Kentucky.
Tom?
No, Bill, Representative Wesley, thanks for being on the show. And, you know, in Sharia, it's a complicated topic, you know, because what the Muslims are saying is, like, we just want an alternative legal system that we can operate within our own little culture. And we want to, not go through American courts to settle disputes. We want to go through our own courts and deal with, and kind of like an arbitration situation. So, and on the first glance, it sounds, well, okay, well, that's nice. Maybe that'll lighten up our court load or whatever. Let them work it out amongst themselves. But what it's actually doing, Bill, and I think you recognize this, it's creating a separate culture, a separate nation within the nation.
Yes.
And so
it is.
And so it's basically creating this enclave, this ethnic enclave that is purposely separatist, with the goal of basically growing to the point where they then take over the political system, just like what they did in Dearborn, Michigan. And so 55% of the population now Muslim, and they're changing the street names. They got calls to prayer like all day long. It is just like you're in the Middle East. And it's, and now they're not rounding up Christians yet and throwing a demi tax on everybody yet, but that's what the culture does eventually. And if you go to, listen, if you wouldn't live in Saudi Arabia, then you wouldn't want that culture to thrive in America. You wouldn't want your city to become like a city in Saudi Arabia. And so that's so anyway, what are your just some thoughts on that approach?
Yes, sir. I would love to have you come up and testify with me when we tackle this on the House level and Senate, if you would.
Let's do it.
You pray about that.
Absolutely.
And, but on another side, and we can even probably have you come on Zoom if you can't make it to the Capitol. This is an issue, and a lot of people is not seeing it. And I believe that there's a lot of people that has been woke up spiritually. But to be honest, we need more people to stand up and fight with us.
Yeah.
Because a lot of issues, a lot of people thinks, well, I just ain't going to say nothing to anything or anybody.
Right. I don't want to be called a racist. I don't want to be called well, Islam's not a race. It's an ideology. It's a religious system, right? And so that's what people need to get their head around. This is not, we're not attacking these people for being just human beings. We're attacking the ideology that they've subscribed to, that they want to act on and act on politically. And so, and their will of instituting Sharia shows their ultimate goal. They want to separate from American culture and then eventually supplant American culture. And they will do that with just what's happening in Europe. Europe is about, 20 years ahead of us. And they're, and listen, I'm sure you've seen this, Representative Bill. There's talk over in England, serious talk by serious politicians and academics of we're probably heading towards a civil war. We cannot settle this. There's such an animus, it's such a militant, aspect to this Islamic immigration, and they refuse to assimilate, and they're so against Western values that we don't know how to solve this, and we think we're going to end up in a civil war. Now, we don't want that in America, and so anyway, I can riff on this for a while. So
Bill, we have only a little over a minute to go in the program. Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, first, I desire everyone's prayers. We need God to open this door for us on the state level, that we can open it up. You look at the Governor Abbott over in Texas. He's fighting this head on.
Yeah.
And man, we know that our governor here is not going to do that. And so we need our leadership on the House and Senate to accept this, that we can put a block here. Let's not wait till this gets blown out of proportion.
Right.
Like the brother just said, what's happening in not just near Dearborn, Michigan, but other places. It's going to cause a civil war if we're not cautious. And so, some things they want to wait till it escalates and then gets worse. We got to put the brakes on this now.
That's right.
We got to stop this.
Bill Wesley, thank you for those final words. Thank you for being on the show today. It's always an honor to have you on our program. As always, our mission is simple: inform, protect, and empower the people of this great Commonwealth with truth and clarity. Thank you for spending your morning with us. Voice will return Monday at 11 a.m. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay vigilant. Have a blessed day, Kentucky. We love you.